Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we are going to continue our look at painting a moonstone gemstone on models. Again, this is inspired by the latest reveals for Age of Sigmar, but this applies to pretty much any models with gemstones on them. To get us started, we're going to use some Gray Seer from Citadel. We're going to use just the dampness of the brush to thin the color out ever so slightly. And we are going to apply a base coat onto the gemstone. Now, I'm using these Harlequin models, and in the previous example, I was using a Harlequin model as well. And it's not important what the model is, it's just whatever model happens to have gemstones, or anything that you want to paint like gemstone. And this is really just for any of those type of effects, so, ignore what I'm painting it on. Could just as easily have been a round thing, detail, I don't know, whatever. Again, as I apply this, because I've thinned this out with a little bit of water, I will have to apply more than one coat. But as I mentioned in the previous video, when I am applying multiple coats onto an area, the first coat is often a little bit heavier than the second and third coats. I will often thin those down just a little bit more, just to get a nice, smooth, even coverage. We're going to use some contrast medium, 2 drops, and a drop of Vulpus Pink. Really, there's very little color in the brush, and when I mix it in, I thoroughly mix it so that you don't see any marbling in the mixture itself. So, and as I apply this, I'm applying it in a glazing typical fashion for glazing. I'm simply drawing the color downwards to allow where the brush stroke finishes to deposit more color. And you can see we build our slight gradient through the stone, and then once that's dry, I'm going to come in and apply a second coat as well. And again, it's a little bit more controlled as far as where I'm applying this color. I do want to create sort of a crescent shape on the gemstone in the typical fashion in which we do gemstones, but here typically with gemstones we build the color brightest to the bottom to create that impression of translucency. Here we're building up a different color from the main body. Talisar Blue is next, 2 drops of medium, very little color in the brush, and when we mix it in we get a very dilute mixture. Again, I thoroughly mix it to the point where I don't see any kind of like a little marbling or anything like that. With this Talisar Blue, we are simply following along inside the crescent shape, but building that color towards the bottom portion of the stone. The 2 colors will mix and create a sort of purplish look to it, but otherwise you want to preserve as much magenta as possible, because when we look at the moonstone, we do see those varying tones at play with each other right next to each other, this kind of magenta hues and these blue hues. So here with this, I'm just going to build up a little bit more of the blue. I do not want to overly saturate the area with this color, because otherwise it makes it look a little too dark, and we lose a lot of, the impression of that very faded look to the stone. But there, I'm pretty happy with where it's at, so we'll just leave it as such. Next, we're going to come in with some Othran Gray. Slap a little bit onto our palette, use a drop of medium just to thin the color out ever so slightly. And with this, I'm basically going to use just about half that dollop as a glaze. I'm going to build that slight transition up. Here I'm using a little bit of the pure color just to create that little glint of light at the base of the stone, again to give that impression of that slight transparency that it has. And then here with this color, I'm going to glaze up the Othran Gray to the high point of the stone, again just to build a bit of that brightness. I do apply one of the layers over a majority of that surface, again because it's a thin glaze. It just downshifts the saturation of the rest of the stone where we had to lay that Vulpus Pink and the Talisar Blue. Here I'm just coming in with a bit more of that Vulpus Pink, again just kind of following along that crescent shape just to reestablish a bit more of those magenta values in there, just because I want to see those there, because again that's often how I see that stone. We're going to use some white scar, slap it onto our palette, just the dampness of the brush ever so slightly to thin the color out. And then here we're going to put our little spot highlight right at the top of the stone. Again, we don't do it at the bottom of the stone. We leave that one kind of that off gray, the Othran Gray. Othran Gray is pretty bright to begin with, so you're okay with just using that as the brightest point at the base of the stone. But again, this gives that impression of there's colors at play within the moonstone, if you've ever looked at moonstone. And then here, I'm just simply taking Gannett Gold, doing the clasp of the stone itself, and then I will come in and apply a layer of Eggrex Earthshade gloss just to help separate the gold from the stone itself, just to get a nice deeper tone in the sides there. And then once it's all said and done, there it is. That is you doing the Moonstone Gemstone effect using contrast. Let me know down below if you guys enjoy part 1 or part 2, whichever one seems easier or, you know, much less difficult to grasp. But that is it. Feel free to leave a comment down below as far as what you'd like to see covered in this Fresh Tips series, and I will be sure to get to it. Huge thank you to my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. You'll be taken off to a magical website where there are varying tiers of support, and a huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.